Wow. This is quite the collection of research you've sent over on Wuyi immigration. It's everything from historical records to economic analyses, even stuff from the UNESCO archives.
Well, it's a pretty incredible story. And as you can see, it's not just some local history. It has a real global impact.
Yeah, I'm already seeing connections that span across continents and even generations.
Yeah, for sure. You know what's really fascinating to me is how this one specific region, like Wuyi in China, has had such a huge impact outwards, shaping not just economies, but cultures too.
Yeah.
In ways you wouldn't really expect.
Yeah, definitely not what I expected at first glance. I'm seeing a lot here about resilience adaptation and the lasting effects of heritage.
That's the heart of it, I think.
One thing that really jumps out at me from all this material is the economic influence of Wuyi immigrants, both globally and also back in their hometowns.
It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
We're talking about people who often left their homes with practically nothing and then went on to contribute so much to the development of places like the US, Canada, and all across Southeast Asia.
From what I'm seeing here, they built businesses, transformed entire industries, and even laid the groundwork for a lot of modern infrastructure.
Exactly.
Like I'm looking at some stuff here about the Transcontinental Railroad in the U.S. And then the Canadian Pacific Railway, too. That's some serious backbreaking work. We're talking about projects that connected entire nations.
Yeah, these were massive undertakings. And Wuyi immigrants were there right on the front lines, facing tough conditions and even facing discrimination. But they kept going. They persevered.
Wow.
And you really have to think about the impact those railroads had. They opened up all these trade routes, helped economies to grow, and even ended up literally shaping the landscape of those countries. It's pretty amazing how much their contributions are woven into those places.
It really shows you the kind of sheer determination and work ethic these people had. And it wasn't only about building railroads, was it?
Oh, definitely not.
I'm seeing that they also had a pretty major impact on agriculture.
Yeah, Wuyi immigrants played a huge role in changing how agriculture worked, especially in California and parts of Southeast Asia. They brought with them this knowledge of these really intensive farming techniques.
Interesting.
And then on top of that, you have their entrepreneurial spirit, which led them to starting successful farms and plantations, and really contributed to the agricultural boom in those regions.
It's mind-blowing to think how people from one specific region could have such a massive influence on all these global industries. But something else that stands out to me is that it wasn't just about global impact. They also did a lot for their hometowns back in Wuyi.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Through their economic activities abroad.
You're right. Remittances, the money that immigrants sent back home here, that's played a massive role in the development of Wuyi. It's a story that stretches back centuries, from like the silver letters in the late Qing dynasty, all the way to modern bank transfers and online platforms we use today.
Silver letters. Now that sounds interesting. Tell me more about those.
So these letters weren't just about the money. They were a real, tangible expression of love and duty and connection. We immigrants would send their money back home with these letters and also detail their lives in them, their hopes, their struggles. And a lot of times that money would be used to support families, build homes, and even fund these community projects back in Wuyi.
That's powerful. A handwritten letter with not just money, but also hopes and dreams. It really shows that these economic contributions weren't just transactions. They were deeply personal and tied to a strong sense of community.
Yeah, exactly. You can see that in the way those funds were used, too. It wasn't just about personal gain. It was about investing in the good of the community. Schools, hospitals, infrastructure projects, all of that was built with help from the Wuyi immigrants who had gone abroad. And it's a legacy that continues to this day.
It's an amazing loop, isn't it? You have Wuyi immigrants contributing to where they are now, and then also helping their hometowns to develop through their remittances and investments.
It's a pretty remarkable cycle.
It is.
And it's not just those big projects either. We immigrants put a lot of their resources into building those Dialu towers, these multi-story houses that were fortified. They weren't just houses, though. They were like symbols of success and resilience and this cool cultural fusion.
Yeah, I'm looking at them here, the Dialu. The mix of Western architecture and traditional Chinese design. They're UNESCO World Heritage Sites now.
I know, it's awesome.
Talk about a testament to the economic and cultural impact of Wuyi immigration. It's like they brought a piece of the world back with them and combined it with their ancestral home.
That's a great way to put it. They're a physical representation of the interconnectedness that's at the core of the Wuyi immigration story. A real fusion of East and West.
Wow.
A reminder of the success and cultural exchange from these incredible journeys.
It's amazing how this entrepreneurial spirit has carried on through generations and across continents. I'm looking at some of the more recent research here that mentions Wuyi businesses thriving on platforms like Temu.
That's where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
We've gone from silver letters to digital platforms.
Right.
And now you have Wuyi entrepreneurs using technology to connect with the entire world. They're selling goods, sharing their knowledge, and driving a whole new wave of economic growth that goes way beyond borders.
It's like that entrepreneurial spirit from all those years ago has evolved and adapted to the digital age. I wonder, though, how has that impacted both Wuyi and those global connections? Has it strengthened those ties or created new challenges?
Well, it's actually a bit of both. Platforms like Temu have given Wuyi businesses this amazing opportunity to reach customers all over the world. It's definitely boosted trade, both locally and globally. But it also makes you think about cultural preservation. As these connections become more and more digital, how do we make sure that Wuyi's traditions and heritage are passed on to the next generation?
That's a good point. It seems like it's this balancing act. Embracing globalization, but also making sure Wuyi's cultural identity isn't lost. And speaking of cultural identity, I'm really fascinated by how Wuyi immigrants have managed that balance when they've gone to other countries. All the stuff you've given me highlights some amazing examples of cultural fusion and adaptation.
Definitely, Wuyi immigrants haven't just blended into their new surroundings. They've taken their own cultural influences and woven them into the fabric of their adopted societies. Like take Chifa cuisine in Peru, for example. It's this incredible fusion of Cantonese cooking techniques mixed with Peruvian ingredients, a real testament to what happens when cultures come together and create something new.
I love that example. It shows how cultural exchange can go both ways and enrich both sides. And it's not just about food.
Right.
I'm seeing that Wuyi immigrants have adapted architectural styles, business practices, and even religious customs, while still holding on to their core traditions.
Exactly. It's this really cool blend of preserving their heritage while also embracing new influences. They've created these vibrant hybrid cultures that reflect their unique experiences. And these changes aren't just personal choices. They're often encouraged and preserved through community organizations like hometown associations.
Yeah, the research mentions those associations a lot. They're really important in supporting Wuyi immigrants and helping them maintain those connections to their roots. Can you talk more about how those associations work and the impact they've had?
Sure. So these hometown associations, they're also known as Kongsi or Tutsu. They were like a lifeline for Wuyi immigrants, especially when they first arrived in a new place. They offered a sense of community, a place to connect with people from similar backgrounds, and a network for helping each other out. They helped new arrivals find jobs, housing, and even legal help.
It sounds like they were essential in helping Wuyi immigrants navigate all the challenges of settling into a new and often very different environment. It shows that even though these people were venturing out into the world, they still had a community to support them.
Yeah, exactly. And these associations weren't just about practical help. They also played a vital role in keeping cultural traditions alive and fostering a shared sense of identity. They organized festivals, celebrated holidays like Lunar New Year, and even set up schools to teach the next generation about Wuyi language and culture. They became these hubs for cultural continuity and a strong community.
It's really inspiring how Wuyi immigrants created these support systems and cultural anchors in their new homes, making sure their heritage wouldn't fade away in the face of all these challenges. But it's important to remember that this wasn't always an easy journey. The research also talks about the hardships and discrimination that many Wuyi immigrants had to deal with.
Absolutely. We can't ignore the challenges and systemic barriers they encountered. In a lot of countries, Wuyi immigrants experienced prejudice, exclusion, and even violence. Like, think about the Chinese Exclusion Act in the U.S. It specifically targeted Chinese immigrants, including those from Wuyi, and seriously limited their opportunities.
It's a reminder of the darker side of history, and also the incredible resilience these individuals showed in the face of such adversity. Even with all these obstacles, they kept building their lives, their businesses, and their communities, contributing to the very societies that often tried to marginalize them.
Their determination is really remarkable. They created their own support networks, fought for their rights, and challenged discriminatory laws. Take the case of Yikwo v. Hopkins, for example. It was a legal battle started by a Wuyi laundry owner in San Francisco, and they actually managed to challenge a discriminatory ordinance that was targeting Chinese businesses.
That case is a true testament to their courage and the refusal to be silenced. It shows how important it is to stand up for justice and equality, even when the odds are stacked against you.
Right.
It's a legacy that continues to inspire activism and advocacy within the Wuyi diaspora today.
And it goes beyond just legal battles, too. Their resilience is also obvious in their dedication to preserving their culture, even when they were pressured to assimilate. They found ways to keep their traditions, language, and connection to their homeland alive. Those silver letters we discussed earlier, they weren't just about sending money. They were a way to keep those lines of communication open across continents, sharing stories, news, and cultural practices.
It's amazing how something as simple as a letter could be so powerful in maintaining cultural continuity. It makes me think about how technology has changed those connections today. We've moved from handwritten letters to instant messages, video calls, and social media. How has that affected the Wuyi diaspora and their relationship with their heritage?
It's been a fascinating shift. On one hand, technology has made it so much easier for Wuyi descendants to connect with each other and with their ancestral home. Platforms like WeChat are like virtual town squares now, where people can communicate, share news and information, and organize events and initiatives. It's created a sense of global community that goes beyond physical borders.
It's like those hometown associations have gone digital, expanding their reach and impact even further. It must be incredible for Wuyi descendants, especially those born outside of China, to have these platforms where they can easily connect with their heritage and build relationships with people who share their roots.
It definitely has. It's helped a lot of people gain a deeper understanding of their cultural identity. But there are some challenges too. As we become more and more reliant on digital platforms for communication, there's a concern about language loss. A lot of younger generations might not be fluent in Taishanese, which is the main dialect spoken in Wuyi, and that can make it harder to fully understand and engage with their cultural heritage.
That makes sense. It highlights the need to find ways to address that language gap and ensure that cultural transmission doesn't get lost in the digital age.
I'm wondering what kind of initiatives are being taken to tackle this challenge and make sure Wuyi heritage continues to thrive in the future. Well, there's some really inspiring things happening, both in Wuyi itself and in the diaspora communities. More and more language schools are popping up, offering classes in Taishanese and other Wuyi dialects, and cultural organizations are putting on events and workshops to showcase traditional arts music and storytelling.
That's great to hear. It's like they're building bridges between generations, making sure those cultural connections stay strong.
Yeah, and it's interesting how technology, which at first seemed like a potential threat to all this, is now being used as a tool to actually revive these traditions.
That is interesting. How so?
Well, there are online dictionaries and language learning apps now, specifically for Wuyi dialects, and social media groups and online forums have become spaces for people to connect and share their experiences. It helps keep those cultural conversations going.
It's amazing how technology can be used in so many ways to both preserve and revitalize this heritage. But it's not just about protecting the past, is it?
No, definitely not.
It's also about how those traditions are being reinterpreted and adapted for the modern world.
For sure. You see that with younger generations of Wuyi descent. They're creating new forms of art music, even businesses, that take inspiration from their heritage, while also incorporating modern influences. It's not about clinging to some fixed idea of culture. It's about letting it evolve and grow with each new generation.
It's definitely a dynamic process, honoring the past while embracing the present and shaping the future. It makes me wonder what all this means for the future of Wuyi immigration.
That's a great question. As we've seen, the reasons people migrate have changed over time. It's not just about economic opportunity anymore. It's about education, global connections, and exploring new possibilities. And with technology breaking down so many barriers, it's getting harder and harder to even define what emigration means.
It's definitely more fluid and complex now. It's not just about leaving one place and settling in another. It's about maintaining those connections, contributing to multiple communities, and maybe even returning to Wuyi with new skills and a fresh perspective.
Exactly. The Wuyi diaspora is becoming more and more transnational, with people moving back and forth, investing in both their adopted countries and their homeland. It shows how adaptable they are and how they can navigate these multiple cultural identities.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of Wuyi immigration, what's the one thing that stands out to you as the most important takeaway? What's the core of this story that we want our listener to remember?
I think for me, it's about resilience and adaptability.
Yeah.
And the enduring power of cultural heritage. It's about a community that went through so much, but never lost sight of its values or its connection to its roots. And it's a story that's still being written, with each new generation adding their own chapter to this incredible journey.
I couldn't agree more. This deep dive has been truly eye-opening, discovering all these layers of history, economic impact, cultural exchange, and personal stories that I never even knew existed. And for you listening, we hope this has sparked your own curiosity. about Wuyi emigration and its legacy. Maybe you'll be inspired to dig deeper into the research you sent us, or explore those online communities, or even connect with your own family history. There's a whole world of discovery waiting for you.